Here we are, beginning carvers. 9 o'clock on Friday night, 12:30 p.m. in South Australia, which is, of course, where I am. Oh, that's a bit better. Yeah, let's make sure I'm pretty. I'm in my reverse flash. Oh, we got one watcher. Hello. Ooh, power tools this week. As stated, I don't advocate using power tools if you don't have experience with them. Power tools are dangerous. There's a lot of safety, gloves, clothes, long sleeve things that aren't floppy, goggles, face mask. Oh, I've frozen. Oh, what's going on? Where's it gone? Seem to have lost everything. I don't know what's going on. Seems to be freezing a lot. It's probably my internet connection on my laptop. G'day everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Cool, we got loads of, oh hello, Dunks. G'day Bonnie, g'day Dwayne. You moving here? No. G'day David, Ned and William and Tina. G'day, g'day, g'day. Hopefully this doesn't cut out too often. G'day Mandalee. Hello Ned. G'day brother. Okay, this week we've got power tools. Still see you move and talk here. Oh, okay. So it just froze on my end. You could hear me. Well, I've got my coffee. I'm outside for a change. I'm not in my little room. I'm on a different computer. I'm on my laptop, rather than my PC. I was going to do this on the phone, but I can't read the content at the same time, so I don't use this very often. Didn't want to waste my coffee. Right, well, scroll. G'day Wheeler. I love the shirt. Yeah, reverse flash. My eldest daughter Zen is the Flash, and she was kind enough that we have this standing joke that as her father, I have to be the reverse Flash, and that's what I am on the. Oh, excuse my nipple. It's a little chilly out here. No nipples. Okay, there we go. Yes, reverse Flash. Bonus. Right now, I am covering power tools this week. I learned how to use that Fordham properly. Now, it's funny because actually that's one of the few things I don't own is a Fordham. I looked at them and $260 odd was a bit steep for a Dremel. Hard to get them here, you know, so it's not something I have, but I do have other things. So, all right, well, here we go. So, of course, the first power tool, the biggest of the lot. Now, this is a small one, cheap brand, electric, as you can see. So, this is one I have to use here. I can't use it. I do have a petrol-driven one, a gas-driven one, but I don't use it very often, not needing to go outside. Now, talk a little bit about chainsaws. Very, very dangerous. You slip with this blade, it's not just a surgical cut that a bit of super glue is going to fix. So caution always with these, using the brakes, being conscious of where the blade is. Now, this is really just a knife. It's just a very big knife with about a oh, I don't know, ends up being about 3/8. I mean, the blade itself is probably more 6 or 8 mil, I suppose, just over a quarter wide. But the cut that you end up with is about 3/8 cut. It acts just as a knife, just a big one. One of the things about these versus normal blades is scale, of course. You wouldn't be using one of these on a little person. One zip and it's gone. So we're really talking about scale here. So scaling up, I used to do larger carvings. I've now joined you guys and started to do many more. I've been doing many more smaller carvings, learning scale, learning scaling, which from my power carving, a lot of this is uncontrolled. You don't get the precision that you get with carving blades. Scale again, blade that's quarter plus thick, spinning tends to cut quite thick. So you wouldn't be using this on a small carving, but to prepare wood up, perfect. To carve your logs and stuff. You can see behind me on that side there, underneath my arm, I've got some logs that have been collected. They're gum power on them because just too hard. So starting off with a chainsaw. Look how grubby it is. This shows you I don't really clean my tools very much. This is just been put here for the time being. It's a bit rickety, but it will hold some stuff. Now, yeah, so a chainsaw, being able to, yeah, I'll get to the burrs, don't worry, Corey. So chainsaw is the starting one. That enables me to take a tree, a log, a large block of wood and remove material quickly. Handy tool, dangerous as. Got to have face masks. It pays to have a face shield on when you're using these. And of course masks because of sawdust and such like. Then I've got a few other different tools. I'll try and do this in scale, try and do it in size. Okay, this thing here, nasty, nasty, nasty. Got to wear gloves with it. Gloves aren't really a good idea with certain power tools because if you do grip the glove, it's going to pull in and do you some serious damage. This is an Arbortech Industrial Pro wood carving blade. It has a thickness of about 4 mil on the actual cutting edge. This is basically, you see Lancelot. This is a little bit tamer version than the Lancelot. It's not quite as bad as a chainsaw on a wheel. It removes wood quickly. Very good tool. Used a lot. This is probably one of my biggest shaping tools after the chainsaw, where I block out as close as I can to the design of whatever carving I'm doing. Then we have a carving blade. Now having that one, that's a, I think that's a 5-inch, 4.5 inch. Then we have the small Arbortech mini grinder. It's got a similar wheel on it to that one. You can see the wheel a lot better. It's got the cutting edge is that little tiny piece there, and you can sharpen them with a file. That goes really well. Let me scroll just in case. If I miss any of your questions for a minute, I do apologise. Leather gloves. When you're using these, the chips that they actually spin off are quite big, and they abrade your hands. So yes, gloves have to be worn with these ones. Fortunately, your cutting edge is far enough away. This thing here, it can convert over. I've got one that does stone, and there's also sanding discs that go into the mini grinder. This is an Arbortech one. Proxxon, I think, is the American brand that do something similar. Good tools. Really love this. Trouble is I had to put it on a decent grinder. I got 2 Bosch. I bought 2 Bosch at the same time because I've got a few of these tools. I've actually got the Arbortex chisels, but they never worked. And it wasn't until we started with knives that I learned the problem, and knives and gouges is the problem that I had with the power carver, power chisels and stuff, was they weren't sharp. I suppose if I sat and I sharpened them now, then it's worth rebuilding, because now I know how it works. One of the problems of using tools that you're not aware of. Okay, so that's that one. In the same category, again, this is a saber-tooth. This is a saber-tooth donut, I think they call it. It has all the little spikes on the outside. As you can see, I've got a little bit of build-up of pine resin, which at some point I've got to sit and clean up. This thing shapes. It's a nasty piece of work. You touch your hand with that and your skin's gone in a big area. But for shaping wood, brilliant. It's a fantastic tool. The saber tooths are, I'll get to them, but they're really, really, really good. Okay, so this one for shaping. They do a smaller version for the, that's, they put that one back down. Oh, wait a minute. This fits on this. So I've got a 4-inch one and a 2-inch one. Very, very handy tools, still in the package. I was lucky, I managed to score some really, really, really good tools, some burrs and things, saber-tooth burrs from Martin Jackson in Western Australia. He used to be an agent, and because of health and going over to ceramics and pottery, he doesn't use these anymore. So he wanted them to go to somebody that would use them, and I got them for a beautiful price. These things run at about, they're somewhere between the $40 to the $60 mark, or thereabouts. That's just one. So going from the saber tooth, if I was then shaping, I'd use the flapper disc. Another really, really good tool. These are really handy for removing a lot of the tool marks that the saber tooths give. So it still leaves marks. You still have to polish out what comes from this, but it's a very handy tool. Let's have a look. Scroll, Colleen, scroll. Is it effective on the denser grain woods? Yes, 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 absolutely. Part of the thing about these is that I work with gum, and it doesn't matter about grain direction, doesn't matter. These things just eradicate, if you like, the wood that's in front of them. So it doesn't matter if it's for, oh, good day, Terry. How do you clean it? By torch? No, I actually use petrol to soften the gum. The resins from the wood. I soften it with petrol, and then I use a brass wire brush. Takes a while. Sometimes I have to sit there with a picker and get underneath chunks of it to flip it off. It's a slow process. They do build up occasionally. You do have to clean from time to time. Petrol, I've found, gasoline is the easiest thing to penetrate it, I guess. Acetone would work. You want something that breaks down the cellulose bond, so it needs a nasty, quite a nasty cleanup. Okay. I've got oxyacetylene, but never thought of using that. No, I wouldn't use them because I might warp it with heat, so I doubt that. Yes, yes, one has to be very careful with these. So the flapper disc, then you've got, after the flapper disc, you use, I don't know, like that's a multi-tool. I can change the head on that and have little saw blades on it. Very handy little tool, cuts in from the side. I burnt one of these out doing the star challenge, doing a 4-inch star. Oh no, it wasn't the star that I burnt it out on, it was my ball in the cage. unfortunately, I was down one of these. I look for these in second-hand stores, garage sales, that sort of stuff. The brand new ones are really expensive, and the branded ones are just ridiculously high. But used as a sander, used for cutting off, for accurate cuts. Very handy tool, relatively cheap. If you get them second-hand way, right? So that's that. Then of course we've got the old sanding machine. Bloody handy. I end up using this on its back a lot to flatten. I've been doing knives recently, and I've used this to flatten out all of the sides of the pieces of wood I've cut. Works very well. It's a cheap brand, GMC, General Motor Company. They went, they disappeared. I guess the company itself went broke, but I got a lot of their tools before that. This is really handy. Belt sander, that's the word I was looking for. Big pieces, so that will do that. Oh, new comments. Scroll, Colin, scroll. John Horton joined. Dale watching a blank screen. Oh, sorry, Dale. Right, so we've done the flapper disc. We've done that. What's on that one? Ah, okay. This Tech tool sander. I haven't got a sanding pad on there at the moment because I just haven't got around to changing it. It's got a rubber. These are about, I think I paid about no, it's over $100 because this is a special bit on there that allows orbital sanding. Very, very good for curves and contours. So that's the orbital sander that Arbortech do. I used to like Arbortech tools, but then I had a bit of a falling out with the company, mainly because I wanted a turbo plane, but I couldn't get one to try, and I couldn't see one demonstrated locally, and I didn't know whether I needed it or not. And in the end, I discovered Sabertooth, and I spent more money than I would have done on the Arbortech tool. But I got multiple burrs, which I'll get onto in a second. Sorry, I keep getting up and walking away. These are bought them all out and put them on the table, but they're out of reach. Okay, small laminate trimmer, small hand rail. Again, very handy when I'm doing knives. Good way of removing the material for